There's a different kind of pressure when Valve releases a game. They don't tweet countdowns, they don't flood YouTube with trailers, they don't beg influencers to react. They disappear. And then something leaks. Footage, close playtests, clips that look unfinished but oddly deliberate, and suddenly, the internet does what it always does. It builds a myth. Valve is back. This is the future. This kills Overwatch. This kills Valorant. This kills everything. All before the game even officially exists. And that's the Valve effect. Because Valve isn't just a studio. It's a legacy. Counter-Strike, Dota, Half-Life, Steam itself. They don't just make games. They've shaped genres. So when something new appears under that name, people don't wait to evaluate it. They assume it's important. But here's the problem with assumption. Eventually, you have to look at what's actually there. And when you strip away the mystic, when you stop looking at the logo, when you analyze the game for what it is, Deadlock doesn't look like a revolution. It looks like an experiment. And experiments are risky. Deadlock is a third-person hero shooter infused with MOBA systems. 6 players per team, lanes, creep waves, objective pressure, item builds, ability-driven fights, vertical traversal. On paper, that sounds ambitious. On paper, it sounds like a fusion of two dominant genres. It sounds like something only Valve would dare attempt. But paper isn't gameplay. When you watch actual footage, when you see matches unfold, when you slow it down and examine the flow, you notice something. It doesn't feel focused. It feels pulled in two directions. Here's the central problem. Deadlock doesn't fully commit. If you approach it as a shooter, the gunplay looks decent, but not genre-defining. It doesn't look as mechanically crisp as Counter-Strike. It doesn't look as tight as Valorant. It doesn't look as fluid as Apex. The shooting is there, but it's not carrying the game. Now approach it as a MOBA. The lanes exist, the creeps exist, the itemization exists, but the macro depth doesn't improve to rival Dota. The pacing doesn't resemble League. The strategic layers doesn't seem as rich. So, what is it? It's not a pure shooter, it's not a pure MOBA, it's a hybrid. And hybrids are dangerous because you risk alienating both audiences. Shooter players will say this feels bloated. MOBA players will say this feels shallow. Competitive ecosystems requires identity. Deadlock right now feels undecided. But this is the most fascinating part. Deadlock is being treated as inevitable. Not promising, not interesting, not experimental. As if its success is guaranteed. That's not because of gameplay, that's because of Valve. Valve has earned a reputation for redefining competitive games. So when something new appears under their banner, people project greatness onto it. But projection creates dangerous expectations. Deadlock isn't being judged as a new IP. It's being judged as Valve's return to dominance. That's a completely different standard, and I'm not convinced the footage we've seen justifies that weight. Competitive games live and die on clarity. If I lose a duel, I need to know why. If I win a fight, I need to understand what I did right. When you look at Deadlock's combat flow, one issue jumps out. Visual density, abilities overlap, projectile stack, vertical movement shift, slightness constantly, creep waves clutter engagements. The screen really looks calm, and calm is important because clarity isn't about simplicity. It's about readability. Overwatch struggled with this. Apex constantly battles it. Even Valorant had to fight ability creep. Deadlock is launching directly into that storm, and layering MOBA systems on top of hero shooter chaos only increases the risk. More mechanics don't automatically means more depth. Sometimes they just mean more noise. And there's another issue here, and it's massive. Can you actually watch Deadlock? Because esports aren't just about playing, they're about spectating. Counter-Strike is readable instantly. Even Valorant, and even League, chaotic as it can get, is visually structured. Deadlock? Right now, it looks messy. Multiple vertical levels, creep waves pushing lanes, ability spam, third-person camera angles shifting constantly. Now, ask yourself, if someone who has never played this game watches a tournament match, will they understand what's happening? Because it's part of the marketing tactics. Because if the answer is no, your esports ceiling shrinks immediately. And Valve absolutely know this. They built Dota spectator tools. They refined CS broadcast model. Deadlock cannot afford to be visually confusing at the highest level. And right now, it kind of is. Deadlock being third person is not a small design choice. It fundamentally alters competitive expression. Third person increases environmental awareness, it changes picking mechanic, it lowers certain aim skill ceilings, it raises positioning information. Valve's competitive legacy was built on first person precision. Counter-Strike is defined by angle discipline and micro adjustment. Deadlock abandons that language entirely. Again, not inherently wrong, but it's not neutral either. It's a radical shift, and radical shifts require exceptional execution. Right now, it's unclear if Deadlock's core mechanics are exceptional or simply different. Now, MOBA systems are complex. Lane management, creep control, scaling, item synergy, objective timing, macro decision making. Now combine that with hero shooter pacing and mobility. You've created a steep onboarding curve. Deadlock doesn't just need to teach players how to aim. It needs to teach them how to think like a MOBA player. That's not easy. League and Dota succeeded because their complexity became a cultural literacy over years. Deadlock is trying to inject that literacy instantly into a shooter audience. Now, that's kinda ambitious. But ambition alone doesn't equal accessibility. And competitive games need player retention at every skill tier. But Valve's development style is different. Minimal communication, close testing, slow iteration, it worked in the early 2010s. But the industry has changed. Silence today doesn't create mystic. It creates speculation. I mean, look all the videos. And also look at you. You're watching this because you want to know why. Inflated expectations magnify disappointment. If Deadlock launches publicly and feels good but not groundbreaking, the backlash could be disproportionate. Because people already expect groundbreaking. That's the cause of brand mythology. Now, the real risk isn't that Deadlock is bad. The real risk is that it becomes niche. Too shooter heavy for MOBA players, too MOBA heavy for shooter players. Competitive games need critical mass. If Deadlock fractures its potential audience, it could struggle to maintain long-term relevance. And in today's market, relevance decays fast. Players already have established ecosystems: CS2, Valorant, Apex, Overwatch, League, Dota. Deadlock isn't entering an empty field, it's entering a battlefield. And Valve's name is not armor anymore, execution is. Deadlock stands at a critical point. If Valve sharpens clarity, commits to a defined identity, balances depth with readability, and embraces competitive structure with discipline, it could become something unique. If they allow it to remain unfocused, if the hybrid identity stays muddy, if clarity remains secondary to experimentation, it risks becoming a fascinating footnote. And that would be ironic. Because Deadlock isn't lacking ambition, it's lacking decisiveness. Now, I'm not saying Deadlock couldn't be special. It could. Brand legacy does not guarantee genre dominance. And the worst thing we can do as players is confuse potential with perfection. Valve has earned patience. It has not earned blind faith. Now, we wait. And we see whether Deadlock becomes a pillar or just another experimentation. Let's zoom out for a second. The competitive space is saturated. But I'm not saying that you can't add more. Because of course, a good competition should always be there. But as of the moment, Valorant owns tactical shooter esports, CS2 owns legacy precision, League and Dota owns structured macro depth, Apex owns high-speed chaos, but it's kind of dead, I know. So what does Deadlock own? That's not a rhetorical question. What is the lane? Because if the answer is it does a little bit of everything, that's not positioning. That's overlap. And overlap without dominance is vulnerability. Deadlock cannot just be different. It has to be better at something specific. Clearer, faster, deeper, more watchable, more mechanically expressive. Right now, it feels like it's trying to prove a concept, not define a genre. Now, this is what I want to hear from you. Do you think Deadlock is the next evolution of competitive gaming, or is this another case of the Valve name doing most of the heavy lifting? Drop your take in the comments, especially if you've actually played it. Make sure to drop your comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more long-form analysis on where the gaming industry is heading, from live service fatigue to studio missteps to competitive design, make sure to subscribe.